Hi everybody, Kat here. Thanks for joining me today. I decided for our first painting in January that I would paint these cute little penguins, but I want to do them more watercolory. So this would be really good for someone who wants to practice wet on wet, or someone who's a true beginner. So I'll walk you through step by step, and I think this will be a lot of fun. So let's get started. I'll leave a copy of the drawing at the end of the video. You can take a screenshot of it and then either print it out or just trace off your computer. And we'll get into the colors that I'm going to use. So this is lamp black, indigo. This is cobalt blue hue. Do not worry about the color of blue that you're using. Just choose whatever you like to look at. This is turquoise. This is pyrrole orange. And this is cadmium yellow. I'm going to first start by really wetting down one penguin only. I think I'm going to start with this guy because he's a little bit easier. You need a super clean jar of water, and then a second jar of water for rinsing your brushes, because the water is going to get quite dark with your blacks and blues, and then it's going to contaminate your whole painting. So I have my brushes that I'm going to use. I have my silver black velvets here. And I also have this Nocturna. It's made by Royal and Langnickel. I got this at Michael's, and it's really a beautiful brush. It comes to a fairly nice point, and it absorbs a lot of water. So I may use that. This is a size 4 for the smaller areas. This is a size, I think it's an 8 because it's worn off. I use it so often. And this is a size 12, which I'll use to wet down the paper. If you like, you can have some salt. You can have a spray bottle ready. This is a mister. So when I spray it, it's not going to come out in big droplets. It's going to come out in a nice mist. And I think we can go from there. Oh yes, and the photo I'm using, the reference photo, is from Carroll on Unsplash, and I will put a link in the description below. All right, let's get started. So with clean water and my large brush, I'm just going to put some water on the head, just on the head. So just before that neck starts. It's kind of puddling up, so I'm going to take a little bit of that off, but I do want it to stay wet. Now with my smaller brush, I'm going to get some of the black that I kind of woke it up earlier with some water, a couple of drops of water, and I don't want it to be too wet because the paper's wet. So I'm going to lay down, I'm going to start right here. And I'm just going to put that where the darkest part of the head is. Now some lamp black usually does flow quite well. It just depends, I guess, on the brand. I have 2 brands, and one flows better than the other, which is, I know sounds bizarre, but that's how watercolor is. And as you become more experienced and try different products, different labels, you'll see the difference for yourself. But for now, don't stress over that. Just use what you have. So I'm just going to bring that to a little point. Now you can see that that has a nice soft edge. And it's at this point, oh, I just dirtied my clean water. It's at this point that I'm going to take my medium-sized brush and I'm going to go into my indigo. And I'm going to, yeah, that's pretty nice and creamy. And I'm going to just, don't forget, I'm not going into wet paper anymore. So I'm just going to touch the head there. And then I'm going to put my brush into some water. And you can see now that it's more watery. So I'm just pushing down on the belly of the brush like that. And it's nice and juicy here. Nice and juicy. Rinse my brush, and I'm just going to touch this very softly. If you are more comfortable wetting your whole bird at once, do that. Let's do that. Okay, so for the real beginners, just wet your whole bird. Nice amount of water. It's okay if it's kind of tinted because we're painting that color anyway. Okay. And on the shoulders here is where I'm going to add some turquoise. Now the reason I chose the cobalt blue is just to mix with the... Sorry, I had a sneezing fit. I'm going to use the cobalt to mix with the turquoise. And it will end up being quite a nice color. Oopsie. It's always nice if you mix your colors ahead of time, just because your paint won't dry, your paper won't dry. So I'm gonna drop that in where the shoulders are. If you want it to be a little more wet, add some water and drop that in over here. And the water will push your darker paint away and introduce the lighter paint. So you can see that's exactly what happened here. So I'm just going to drop in a bit more. And now we're going to go back to the indigo, which is right here. Now the paper's wet. So I'm just going to go down that, I don't know what this is called. It's a flipper or something. And it'll meet that blue and they'll just kind of mingle all by themselves. And then I'm going to come down the edge of the bird and the edge on this side. And then a little around here. Okay, just filled it in. It's okay if you have white spots. It's not a big deal. That's just my paper probably. Now down here, there's like a little tail. So I'm just going to drag. I'm just doing a zigzaggy motion. I can put a tiny bit of black right there. And with the same brush, I'm going to pick up a bit more of that blue. It's still kind of, I don't have enough, just a minute. And then I'm going to drop it in just for some highlights here and there. Now, to get scary, we're going to take the big brush and some clean water. And you're going to take your big brush, and before you don't touch the bird, wet your paper and then touch and touch and touch. See, it's going to draw out the paint. And if you want it to look like there's more, you just add more into here by itself. I think this blue would look nice here. I'm just wetting it so that it kind of flows off into nothingness. Now I'm going to take my very small brush and mix some of this orange and the cad. Oops. Too much cad. More orange. I'm going to just go paint in here, and I don't mind if it bleeds into each other. I don't know if it will because it's getting dry, the top of the head. There we go. And then down here, there's just a bit of cadmium yellow. And this is where you would add salt if you had salt in front of you, which of course I forgot. So this is where you would add the salt. Okay. Now we're going to let this dry and come back and do the other side. Okay, so I found some salt, as you see, so I sprinkled some there. So now I'm going to work on this penguin, and I forgot to ground the penguins, so I will do that in the next step. So we're going to do the same thing with this little guy. I have to keep checking my camera, make sure that you can see. So I'm going to wet the head. And I'm going to go into my black. Pretty creamy. And we're just going to drop that in there. And come down. As you see, it's going to travel. I'm just going to make follow that S shape all the way down. And follow this one. And with the same brush, don't worry if your lines aren't perfect, you can fix it with a smaller brush after. With the same brush, I'm going to go into that nice kind of orangey color. I'm going to drop it in right at the neck, right there, and right here actually. This I'm going to leave the paper dry to do. Rinse my brush. I'm going to tickle underneath that orange. So it's going to come down, and I'm going to add some yellow to it. So it should all blend together. And just tickling the edges with some water. Now for this patch, I'm going to wet it. And I'm going to get some indigo. And drop that in there. If you don't want that, I don't really care that that's there, but I'll show you how to remove it. You dry off your brush, and you just soak it up. Okay. And then I'm going to take my turquoise and cobalt mixture here. And I'm going to drop it in here. Okay. And now down here, there is his flipper. That will be indigo. And then on the belly, I think I'm going to just wet that and let that flipper bleed into the belly. And I think we'll put some of this nice turquoisey color over here too. So I'm going to turn my work around. I'm going to take my large brush and I'm going to just tickle that flipper, come up, and I'm going to add some of that here. And a little bit of the indigo as well. Just tickling those edges so that they don't dry hard. And I'm going to sprinkle a bit of salt. Kind of give it a snowy look. And I'm going to turn this back around and I'm going to do down here again. So I'm not liking how this turned out. Just going to re-wet the whole thing. Because the turquoise blue didn't bleed very well into the indigo. So I'm going to fix that. I'm going to put a bit more indigo on the edges, like this. And I come down with that tail. And while it's all wet, we're going to drop in some of that nice cobalty kind of mix that we have going. And then I'm going to wet my brush with some clean water and just kind of ground the penguin. There. With my smaller brush, I'm going to just put that little thing near the mouth. I'm not sure what that would be. I'm going to dry off the ferrule of my brush. There we go. And with a very solid black, like really very little, very little water. Just going to put in a little line there for the eye. It looks a little bit happy. Just going to try and tidy up these edges. There we go. I think this is blacker around here. And look at the lovely bleeding you're getting. So you can use as much water as you feel comfortable with. If it's still wet, it'll draw it out. If it's not wet, it'll leave a cauliflower. So you can pull it out if you like that. I'm just touching the painting with the side of my brush. Add a bit of salt. And I'll be back when it's dry. So now I see that the neck is looking a little flat. So I'm going to re-wet this area and I'm going to drop in a little bit of the indigo. And once I see it sort of offers it a little bit more shape. And then with a thirsty brush, I just soften the edges. So here it is in all its glory, these two lovely penguins. I really liked how this turned out. I love the salt effects. I really hope you enjoyed the video and that you really do try this. It's much easier than it looks, and I know you can do it. And if you do it, please share your work on our Facebook page. I'd love to see it. Happy watercoloring, everybody. Bye-bye.